Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some PathOfExile discussion. Patch 3.22 has had a very interesting trade league economy. This is one of those leagues that's had what you might term a lot of inflation. We'll get to an exact definition of what that means later, but we're going to be talking today about the PathOfExile trade league economy in the Ancestor Softcore League, so without the hardcore rule set in play and without the ruthless rule set in play. If you do have any of those optional hard modes on, then of course everything is going to change a bit. But the most popular way to play the game is softcore, trade enabled, and without the ruthless rule set applied, and that's what this video is going to be looking at. Additionally, this is about the PC world, but I wouldn't be surprised if some of these trends end up flowing through to console, because the underlying reasons are still the same. So let's start by looking at what you might term one of the most expensive luxury goods inside PathOfExile, the Mirror of Kalandra. In Crucible League, on day 23 of the league, a Mirror of Kalandra cost 46,000 Chaos Orbs, which was 220 Divines. Now, Crucible League, it's important to say, was the league in which mirrors had the most utility that they've ever had. That's because of the extreme power of Crucible trees, so they were just objectively stronger than they've ever been in that league. Sanctum League, 50,000 Chaos, which was 199 Divines. Kalandra League, 37,000 Chaos, which was 210 Divines. You'll see a bit of a pattern there. Yeah, sure, there's a bit of variance, but then we have a look at the Ancestors expansion. 89,000 Chaos on day 23, 390 Divines. You can see that they're basically twice as expensive as they've been in every other league. Let's have a look at two other commodities that very wealthy PathOfExile players want. Let's start with Headhunter, which is arguably the most accessible of the Chase uniques. In Crucible, 25,000 Chaos or 120 Divines on day 23. In Sanctum, a little bit more, 30,000 Chaos, but still 120 Divines. In Kalandra, a little bit less against the Chaos Orb, 23,000, but Divines were a bit cheaper that league, so it was 130 Divines. What about Ancestors? Well, here again we see a big jump up in price. 38,000 Chaos, 160 Divines. Mageblood is going to tell a similar story. Here you'll see 200 to 250 Divines in all of the previous leagues, 350-ish in Ancestor, and against the Chaos Orb it's a similar story, 40 to 60,000 in the previous leagues, 80,000 in this league. And it's not just the most expensive of the chase items that are like this either. I had a look at Stranglegasp as an example of something that comes only from one type of content, but that isn't in tremendous demand. Yeah, there's a lot of people who want Stranglegasp, but it's not something that's phenomenally expensive. It's not something that is miles out of the reach of a semi-casual player the way that Headhunter is. In Crucible, 8 Divines, Sanctum, 8 Divines roughly, Kalandra was actually way cheaper, and then in the Ancestors League, 16 Divines, and also double the price in Chaos Orbs as well. I've also had a look at a number of other items as well. Elderslayer Exalts, Awakener Orbs, Big Replica Uniques, Ashes of the Stars, to a lesser extent Crystallized Omniscience, and really most other consumable commodities that I could think of that are generated from one particular type of league content. So Tainted Blessings, for example, much more expensive this league than they've been in recent times. As long as there's some demand for this consumable, it seems to have gone up quite a lot. And I think that the reason for this is something that can be explained in two parts. Firstly, the culprit is primarily the Sanctum mechanic. The Sanctum mechanic is generating a very, very large amount of Divine Orbs into the economy. It's generating a very, very large amount of Chaos Orbs into the economy, and it's also generating an even larger amount of Awakened Sextants into the Trade League economy. But these are not necessarily being spread out to all players. They're going to the people who have made a very, very hyper-focused Sanctum optimized build. These builds are completing the Sanctum extremely easily and extremely efficiently, and they're reaping tremendous rewards from this. What happens when the very rich players get even richer? Well, the items that they want go up in price relative to whatever it is that they're generating. The people who are playing Sanctum all the time, they are generating a lot of what Sanctum generates. They're generating a lot of Divine Orbs, they're generating a lot of Chaos Orbs, they're generating a lot of Awakened Sextants, and also Bubblegum currency, but that doesn't matter as much. It's really those main three. They have a lot of these and they can throw them around in order to outcompete other people who might be looking to buy an Ashes of the Stars for their build, or to buy a Stranglegasp, or to buy a Headhunter, or to buy a Mageblood, or to buy a Mirror of Kalandra. That's what's going on in this league economy. That is the reason that a lot of the top items that people are looking for are so much more expensive in patch 3.22 than they have been in the past. Now, there's a couple of things that could be done in order to change this. The first one really comes down to Grinding Gear Games' decision to bring back the Sanctum at full power, but to have the Sanctum research notes be as common as they are. Sanctum research notes are not genuinely common in the sense that every play session that you run, it's not like you're getting 3 of them dropping, but approximately 1 in 30,000 items that drops across the entire League economy from Act 10 onwards is going to be one of the Sanctum tomes. In short, for those of you who have done divination card farming, Sanctum tomes are about 3 times rarer than the Patient, and about 5 times rarer than the divination card the Fortunate that was added in this league. But whilst it's rarer than those things, it can drop in every map in the game, and that means that there's a lot of them circulating around. This means that those players who are intending to just specialise in Sanctum have access to an enormous amount of Sanctum tomes that they can just run back to back if they want. And in fact, at the time I'm recording this video, Sanctum tomes are selling in bulk at 7 tomes to 1 Divine Orb, which is incredibly cheap for the amount of loot that they can potentially deliver to you. And that is for the highest tier ones, that is for tier 16 or monster level 83 ones. They're even cheaper if you're buying lower tier ones. This is also pulling people who might otherwise be doing ultra juiced mapping out of doing that ultra juiced mapping that generates divination cards, that generates invitations for bosses and things like that, and instead into the Sanctum. So those players are no longer generating apothecary cards. Instead of generating apothecary cards, they're instead removing apothecary cards from the economy because they're trading for them in order to get the personal Mageblood that they want to use, which they can afford because Sanctum is generating so much loot for them. So all in all, is it a positive thing or a negative thing that Sanctum is generating this inflation? It's making all of these high-end items be much more expensive than they might otherwise be. Or to be more precise, it's reducing the buying power of Divine Orbs, Chaos Orbs, and Awakened Sextants. Well, it can be a positive in certain situations. If you're someone who loves running Crimson Temple specifically, then this means that every time you get that miraculous apothecary drop or that lucky 7 years bad luck drop, that you've actually received a lot more wealth than you otherwise would have, because someone that is a Sanctum enjoyer is then going to buy that item off you for more than you would have otherwise got for it. Likewise, if you're someone who likes running some sort of obscure side content, maybe you run the Eternal Labyrinth of Tribute and you get generating a lot of Grand Spectrum jewels, there's people who want those, and because the Sanctum people can throw around so much currency, that means that your Grand Spectrum jewels are worth more than they would otherwise be in a different league. So there's all of these sorts of countervailing factors. Ultimately though, I don't like it when there's a mechanic that is so strong that you feel like the right thing to do is to make a new character specifically for that mechanic, even if it's not one of your favourite mechanics, even if it's not one you particularly like much at all. And I believe that in this league, Sanctum is actually at that power level, where it is so good that even if you don't like Sanctum, you're going to feel some degree of pull into respecking into a character that can do Sanctum well, or rolling a new character explicitly optimised for the Sanctum, something like a Hexblast Miner that's really good at clearing the Sanctum safely and cleanly. Anyways, that is some of the thoughts that I've got on the inflation that's been going on in patch 3.22, the weird trade league economy that we've got. I'm going to leave it there. May your Valorbs have interesting results, and may Lycia give you the loot rewards that you deserve.